Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, episode 310. And we're talking a little bit about, you know what, we're kind of going back to our roots, which is kind of nice. When you brought the idea up, I was kind of excited for it. So going back to the roots, we are talking about knife maintenance. And I got thinking about it, when was the last time we had a good talk on knives or a good discussion? Because we know it's very debatable. We know it sparks a lot of interest and difference of opinions. And I love that kind of stuff when it comes through. We need to do this more often.
Well, and it's something we both have a unhealthy passion for.
I had to go dig through a drawer and pick out a couple of the ones I wanted to show, and I was having a hard time. Like, it's a full filing cabinet full of knives. It's weird.
Yeah, I have a big ammo can full of knives. And that's not all of them. That's just the ones I keep there.
Yeah, that's just the ones in the house, not including what I have out in the garage. Yeah, it kind of becomes an unhealthy obsession, and we've mentioned that before in the past. And you know what? I'm going to, maybe popular opinion, unpopular opinion. I don't consider it an unhealthy obsession because you learn what you like and what you don't, and you're always seeking something that suits your needs a little bit better. So that might be the obsession. Owning the knives is not the obsession. It is chasing after the unicorn that becomes the obsession. Because we said before, one knife does not do everything.
No,
but we're never going to stop looking for it.
it doesn't, and we could do one just on knife shape and knife design and different things. And there's folders and solid shank and all these different things, or full shank, whatever you want to call it, and in metal types. And it's, some people get extremely passionate about it, and I don't, to the level of even some people, but I always have at least, at the bare minimum, at least one knife on me.
Oh, absolutely. I always have my pocket knife, which I actually brought here. And I mean, it's not much of a knife. It is a knockoff Swiss Army knife.
I have that one.
Yeah, I got it for Christmas some year. And you know what? The reason I keep it in my pocket, it's got scissors on it. And you don't understand how often Willie wants me to cut tags off things.
Oh, I probably do.
Actually, you probably would, Ben.
But I love, actually, when we talk about folders and Swiss Army knives and stuff like that, that is one thing I really enjoy is a good pair of scissors. And you really can't beat having a good pair of scissors on a knife. My current everyday carry Swiss Army knife is this one here, and this is a Wagner, I think it is. Yeah. Wagner, Swiss Army knife. It's a beautiful knife. Has a locking blade. There's a few things I really like about this knife. There's a couple things I don't like about it. The awl on it is just an awl. It just a pointy stick, really. It doesn't have the hole, so it's the proper Victorinox has a sharpened edge and a hole, so you can really use it for a bit more. But it's very ergonomic. I love it. And the metal in it's decent.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is, personal preference aside, and that is a whole episode on its own, like Ben said. There is so much behind it if you want to dive down that rabbit hole that we could tie up hours upon hours of having discussions and debates over stuff. The internet's full of it. It's a really interesting thing, and if you're into knives at all, definitely go look it up. I mean, just on the it doesn't even have to be on the bushcrafting side of things. Just look up knife making and metalwork in general. Like Ben said, there's so many metals and stuff and different formulas, and it's literally unlimited. But something they all share in common, to a degree, is the maintenance, which is what we're talking about here tonight. And that is the great common thing with most metal tools, in all honesty. They all require a bit of upkeep. If you read the description, the things we're going to talk about here tonight is there is upkeep, there is restoring. So if something gets a little too bad, you may have to do a little bit of restoring on it. And then the other side of this, or the other big one that I see, is getting something ready for service. Just because you grab it out of a package doesn't always mean that it's ready to go. It may be usable, but it may not be ready for what you want it for. So there is some things you can do that, like, I know when I get a knife, I do some things that I like, that once they're done, it gives me a little better peace of mind for when I'm going to use that tool to do something in the woods or in my living room for whatever reason, if I'm just cutting kindling or yarn, whatever. But there's stuff I always do to knives or really any metal tool before I start putting them into service. Let's see, we have Caleb Campbell, longtime listener from Pennsylvania, finally caught you live. Definitely learn a lot from you guys. Thanks. No worries, Caleb. I mean, you know what? Sick of us or not, we're not going anywhere. We've said this many a times. We enjoy doing this and we'll keep doing it. And it's awesome that people are getting something out of this, because that is honest. Once again, it's why we did it. That's why Ben and I, well, originally, I don't know what the original idea was anymore. We've strayed so far from that original plan. But what it is now is we enjoy doing this and we enjoy sharing the information, and it's just getting the information out there. So once again, Caleb, thanks for joining us. And if you have any input, feel free to comment. We always try to post that stuff up. We appreciate the other points of view. Just because we give our opinions and our experiences does not make us experts on anything. We're just a couple of guys with some experience, and that's basically what we do. So once again, man, if you want to put anything in here, put it up. Join the conversation. We appreciate it.
So as you were getting at, first, you first get your knife. What do you have to do? And the first thing I do is check the edge. A lot of knives don't show up with the great edge. They show up with a serviceable edge. And that's not universal. As you get into higher end knives, some of them come with deadly sharp blades. And some of the cheaper ones, oftentimes they don't bother putting an edge on it. And that's so that you can put whatever edge you would like on it. And do know that the geometry of your blade really does affect how it's going to cut and how it's going to operate. And so what you want to do with a knife, it's oftentimes best that you do take a few minutes to properly put an edge on that. And if you're not comfortable doing that, you can actually do a lot of damage to your knife quite quickly with a stone, or I've seen people use files, sandpaper.
I don't know if that one's going to come through. This is one of my more... yeah, that light's kind of hard on it there. I don't know if anybody can see, but anyway, it drops in the belly. Before I got this knife, somebody murdered it on a stone. And I brought it back as best I could for what I wanted, but it's still not quite the shape it should be. And what happened was, like Ben said, somebody got on there trying to sharpen it, trying to do something good, didn't really understand how stones work, and ground way more out of the belly than the rest of the knife. And it kind of looked like almost K-bar, not K-bar shaped. What's the one with the hooped edge? I can't remember. Anyway, it had a hoop on the front, like it was almost hook-shaped.
This guy?
But yeah, factory edges. Getting back to that point, I find a lot of factory edges that come out, especially if it's a mass-produced knife. They're quickly run through. The temper's not super great on that outside edge because, once again, they're hammered through grinders pretty fast. Goes down a conveyor belt, gets drugged down some stuff, grinds it off. Little hot. The edge is there. It may shave nice and sharp, but it's still a really rough edge most times. And it doesn't hold well, is what I find. That edge may be razor sharp for one or two cuts, and then it starts building up stuff in the non-smooth edges, because as they drag it through, that still leaves a lot of little serrations on it, is the word I'm trying to state. Maybe you can't see them with your eyes, but they're still there. And it picks stuff up, and it rolls, and it chips, and it's just not always the best edge. So, much like Ben, first thing I do, knife comes out of a package, I put my own edge on it. I sharpen it. I go... I at least start at something like a medium grit. I may not go to coarse if I'm matching the same grind angle, but I'll at least go to a medium, do that, polish it out tons, basically until I got a mirror finish on that. I put a little magnifying glass up to it, and if I can basically see stuff back at me, I'm happy.
Yeah. So, and I don't have a true preference, but I do know that this is extremely important. What's your favorite? What do you use for an oil?
Depends what I'm using. On diamond stones, the ones I have, they recommend not to use oil. On a whetstone, I use actual sharpening oil. For what it's worth, I got some of this Lansky sharpening oil, and I got a little vial of honing oil as well. But once I get to honing, what I found works better, if I still have the polish out. Anyway, the Jeweler's Rouge that I use, the green bar, I use it on my strop with olive oil.
Oh, okay.
Olive oil actually breaks down the compound, making it thinner, spreading it out thinner, and gives you a nicer edge. It was a chef that taught me that. Now, if it's a lie to me, it's a lie to all you folks out there. But he swore by it. He used, like, I always ask, why don't you just buy the honing oil? It was like, that's expensive, and I got 12 liters of olive oil over there, and it does a better job. So I was like, okay. So I just started stealing olive oil out of the kitchen.
It's very food safe. We know that olive oil is not going to hurt your food.
Exactly.
And if you're using your knife, and many of my knives do get used for food more often than probably I should. My pocket knife, I try to keep my pocket knife very clean. And I think people who use pocket knives a lot, you'll notice that they do. They wipe them down when they're finished. And that's part of the maintenance, right? And part of oil is what I use for honing oil. That's definitely it. But do you do anything to protect the metal itself? Now, a lot of knives are going to be stainless steel, and those are very forgiving. You can pretty well waste a bit of fluid on this and not worry about any damage. You can clean it and leave it a little wet, and it'll be fine. But if you have one with like a carbon steel,
I got one. Oh, there it is. So Schrade, Srade. I think that's the company name, or that's how you spell it. It's not written on the knife. They make a very high carbon steel knife. Nice knife. Can't leave it damp. Period. Like, if you breathe on this and put it away, it will have rust on it. Well, surface kind of corrosion on it. Schrade. Nice high carbon steel. You can strike a nice spark off the back. That's why I bought this one, high carbon steel. You can use it for a striker. And it makes a great scraper for a ferro rod. But it does not like moisture.
No. I bought like Mora knives, and you can buy a high carbon version of that. And honestly, same thing. Like, you come back from a damp day and you have, the start of corrosion on it. You can see some oxidization. And so it's really important you have a knife like that, some kind of light oil. Olive oil I have used. I've also used 3-in-1 oils, things like that. Anything that'll just keep the moisture off it. If nothing else, hit it with a bit of WD-40 and wipe it down. That'll get rid of any moisture that's on it. Water displacement is what WD originally stood for. And that'll help keep it dry. But it is important if you have those kinds of knives. And they're very popular with the outdoor enthusiasts, which is ironic because they're the least robust with moisture, right? But they are a good knife. They usually hold a very good edge. They're very strong. And there's a lot of advantages to them. I do know that they take that bit of maintenance. And that is a big part of it. And if you see a bit of corrosion, getting that off quickly is the best thing, because if you let it sit, it can pit and change the look and feel and even mildly the function.
No, corrosion will ruin knives, exactly like you said, Ben. Especially if it gets down around like the edge. It can start taking chunks out of it out when you go to sharpen it and stuff like that. It can be a bad thing. A couple more folks joined us there in the comments. RM Shoots, Steve, the Drifting Spore. I know you told me how to say your name before, dude. I can't remember. EJCROSMUN. I'm sorry, man. Anyway, they ask, what is your favorite knife? And we kind of said that at the start, that one knife does not do everything well. So that's why we ended up with a bunch of knives. We're always looking for that unicorn, if you will. But we generally do have ones we go to more often than not, but it depends for the function. Like I said, this is my pocket knife. It's a knockoff Swiss Army knife. Ben has the actual Eric. I can go with Eric, man, and I will remember Eric. So yeah, my pocket knife is just a knockoff. I keep it because it has scissors, and I use scissors a lot. Now, my outdoors knife, I have between these two, which are no specific brand name. It's more the shape and how it feels in my hand. So to give you what is my favorite knife, I can't even hazard a guess as to the brand name that I would recommend, because it honestly comes down to, does it do what I want it to, and does it feel good in my hand? And what feels good to me may not feel good to you. Ben and I vary on knives. Knives he likes, sometimes I'm like, it doesn't sit in my hand right. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel good to me. So it's kind of a personal thing. Not that I'm offended or anything that you asked. It's just a real hard question to answer.
There, I have a lot of knives I really like. One knife that we were given as part of this show was the Open L #8, and that actually sat in my pocket for a very, very long time, and it's recently hit a shelf for a bit. But this is a very good knife, and I just found a kit where you can get a fork and spoon that you can add to it.
Okay, we'll talk after the fact.
So that's recently made itself, one of those things that I kind of enjoy. And you use the locking mechanism, and now I have a. So that's a neat little thing. This is a very good knife. If you're looking for something that's really good for food prep, mild carving, I would highly recommend this knife. I wouldn't say this is a great knife for more robust tasks. The blade is relatively thin. It is extremely sharp, but I don't think it would take a severe beating. For more tough things, for me, I do carry more. Was it garbage? Garbage?
I got the start my fire version off it, or light my fire version off it. You can't go wrong with a Mora.
No. Plastic sheath. You can get the stainless steel or the carbon steel. They work really well. The beauty is they don't cost a fortune. And the average one, like the companion I have, and I still have, I use it a lot. But their garbage or whatever it is a higher end version of it. It's probably sells for about $100, $150, depending on what you want. I have some other knives my brother's given me. These are more big brand names. I really like them because they have some neat function to them. These are really good. I wouldn't say one particular brand though. Also, you can't go wrong with a Swiss Army knife. Really, you can't. Gerber, I've got a lot of Gerbers I've used over the years. Some of them I really enjoy. My only complaint with them is a lot of them tend to be bulky.
They add a bunch of stuff in that they think people want, and they don't really want it.
But they're multi-tools, hard to beat. Leatherman isn't bad.
I get a Leatherman. I enjoy it. It's not bad. I have a Gerber as well, though.
Yeah. I have both. And there's a time and place for them. I also have some knockoff brands that actually do some really good things. The problem with the multi-tools for me is when something breaks, you kind of get disheartened with the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? So you still have 10 functions that work really good, but the 11th function kind of annoys you.
You know what? When it comes to multi-tool, and we have dove down a massive rabbit hole here, and I promise we'll get back on track here in 2 seconds. But when it comes to multi-tools, you know that one we bought on Amazon that was on sale for like $50? It's become my daily driver in my truck for a multi-tool. And I still absolutely love it.
Yeah, I lost one of the bits from it, and that annoys me.
You can pick them up. You can buy the bit. It's for a screwdriver. I think you told me about them. I ended up buying a whole bunch more.
One of the Klein screwdrivers. Yeah, I have to go out and get some. But yeah, really what you need to look for is one that has the shape and function and a handle that fits well in your hand. Each job, I mean, there's a couple of knives there. This is one I picked up recently. This is an old knife. This knife is, I have no idea how old it is. It's German made. And I'm pretty sure this has probably gutted and cleaned more moose than you can shake a stick at. Because I know where it came from. But if you're doing skinning animals, having something with the curve like this really is good. It really helps you skin, but you can also get it in and help open up spots, like split the ribs, open the spine. So a good solid knife, you want something that's strong, that's going to be able to take a little bit of leverage. If you're trying to carve, I have carving knives. Those knives also, you want this purpose built. You don't need a longer blade. A long blade is hard to carve with. You can, but you want something that's more detailed. It needs to be
My
strong.
Nope, sorry, go for it.
I was just saying that it needs to be as strong and sharp for carving. But all these knives have a few things in similar. They need to be maintained with a proper edge for its function. They need to be protected from elements. You do need to lightly oil them. They need to be maintained to be clean. And you also have to take care of the handle. And this is the other thing I think a lot of people forget about is the handle also, and especially with moving parts, the joints. You know, you need to put a little bit of lubricant in here occasionally, and you need to clean out any fuzz. Fuzz and dirt gets in here, and all of a sudden it won't open and close as it's supposed to. If there's an action, sometimes you have to tighten up the action or loosen it to make sure that the blade functions the way you want it to. These are all things that you have to be, aware of with your knife.
100%. So now that we're back onto the maintenance part of things, we talked about keeping an edge on it. And if you don't know how to sharpen, which is kind of where we left off, there's a couple methods you can do that are tried and true and will get an edge on it for you. They may not be perfect, and you'll get some of the purists out there that say if it's not a whetstone, it's not a real edge. Here's the facts, my opinions, folks. If it cuts and holds the edge, you're good to go. And some things that'll do that is, now I'm not a super big fan of these, but these drag-through sharpeners, I carry one in my kit bag because it'll put a quick edge on in the woods. It's real easy to put an edge on that'll last a little bit, but it doesn't hold great because this is like carbon being pulled through. You're shaving metal off. It leaves a coarse edge on it. So you definitely have to follow it up by a fair amount of stropping. And I don't necessarily carry a strop in the woods, but I do carry one of these. Like I said, if it goes really dull, I can put an edge on it until I get home. And then when I get home, if I have the time, I got something like this, which puts, like, you can dial in the angle. It's a Lansky kit. You basically just set your angle and off you go. There's a couple different versions of this and a couple different companies that do it. But it's a definite way for anybody out there that doesn't necessarily understand how a whetstone works. And then if you do understand how a whetstone works, you can definitely move on to that. Yeah, the work sharps. Is that the Speedy Sharp work sharp? Like the electric one?
It's like the Lansky. Honestly, it has the platform, and you put. I mean, I got the one with the diamond stones.
Yep, that's what mine is, diamond stone one. And if anybody's out there wondering, there is two types of stones. There's a wet stone, which you need water or oil while you're sharpening on it. And then, yours is, you and I compared these before. Yours is actually a little more dialed in than mine. Sorry, the other type of stone you can get is a diamond stone, which generally, if you read the instructions, they say not to use any kind of oil or something with them. But, I mean, do your research, make your own opinion. I'm not going to say one way or another.
Yeah, you definitely can use a light oil with it if you want. I tend to not very much. But the beauty of a diamond stone is they're very hard. They will put a very good edge with relatively little skill if you know what you're doing. But you can mess it up. Like those are guides. So with those, when you lock it in, you can set your angle, you can dial it in, and you can pretty well do it. You want to sharpen evenly. And this is the thing. You count your strokes. You do 10 strokes on one side, you do 10 strokes on the other side. You keep your force consistent. Don't do 10 light strokes on one side and 10 hard strokes on the other side. You will mess up your blade. It'll be off center. It won't quite cut quite as true. And eventually it'll take a lot more work to try and get it back where it is.
And if you're going to go into polishing, my only follow-up to that would be the rule of thumb. Once again, mileage may vary. If you're going to go down in grit size, so if you start at like a 400 and then you drop to an 800 and then to 1,000, the rule of thumb is double the strokes when you go down, because the idea is to pull all those burrs and stuff off as you go down. So if you do 10 and 10 on your... and I'm just using small numbers here. I would never do 10 and 10. I'm probably more like 100 and 100. But it's nice light strokes, and I go really small, you know what I mean? Then this is a bad edge. But anyway, say you did 10 on the coarse one. That means you should do 20 each side on the fine one, and then 40 on each side on the ultra fine one, and you're supposed to work down. That's the idea be getting behind like a mere finish. Now, I have my own method, but that's the rule of thumb that I started on, and it does work. it just seems to be an awful lot more than you need to do, in my opinion. And I've put these under a little microscope and kind of backed my knowledge up, but that might be another talk, maybe another video. So anyway, we got to keep some oil to this. We got to keep the moisture out. We got to keep a nice sharp edge on it. That way we know it's good when it is ready. Most people with a knife should understand that it's a dull knife that usually cuts people, not sharp knives. Dull knives don't do what you expect them to do. Now, when a sharp knife cuts somebody, it's generally because they're misusing the knife or they're not sure how to use the knife. But in major cuts and stuff like that from somebody that's had tons of experience with a knife, you don't know how it happened, chances are the knife was dull and it did what they didn't expect it to do. It didn't bite the way they expected it to. It glanced a way it shouldn't have. Maybe it had a nick in it and it pulled where they didn't think it would. It's generally the deterioration of the edge and the dullness of that knife that leads to major cuts and injuries. And I have seen a ton of these as a first responder. And it's always the common one. Oh, I was peeling something, or I was carving a piece of stick out, or you know what I mean? And it just slipped. That's the common one I hear is it slipped. Well, why did it slip? It was dull and it didn't dig in like they thought it was going to.
Now, this happened to me, and I'm going to tell you this story. I like the sharp knives. I do enjoy it, and I do a lot of it by feel. So I take my stones. Usually it's diamond, but I've used whetstones and other methods. And I sat down one time at my mother's house, and I pulled all her knives out. And I put an edge on all of them, and then I went away and I did something. When I came back, I got yelled at because she had a habit of cutting using her thumb. She was
pushing it on the knife.
And when she was finished, her entire thumb was like mincemeat. It was hundreds of little tiny, very sharp cuts. And she didn't realize that it was no longer dull enough that you could push your thumb against it.
Mel won't use any of my knives here. Mel uses a steak knife for everything because she is terrified about how sharp the knives are. Which I keep telling her, you should be less scared of them. They'll cut and do exactly what you expect every single time.
But yeah, if somebody doesn't have proper respect for a sharp knife, they are dangerous. They are. People have a fear of knives. A good sharp knife is going to do the job you want it to do, and it's going to cut what it's meant to cut. And this is the other thing. The thing that dulls a knife most is that people have cut something they shouldn't have, or cut against something they shouldn't have. And this is the other piece of maintenance that I really would like to talk about. Cutting boards or anything you're backing up your cut with should not be something that'll damage your knife. And a good example of this, how many people out there have rock and glass cutting boards?
Oh, 100%. The one I'm thinking of is simply just with an axe, splitting your kindling on the ground.
Yeah.
You hit a rock, that's definitely harder than a blade is meant to cut.
And when you're splitting, you tend to want to hit against something hard. So a rock makes sense. The problem is when it goes through, and it's going to go through,
Absolutely.
And it hits the rock, you've definitely damaged the blade. And it's going to take time to take that dent out of that blade. A lot of times. So, I mean, the best thing to split wood against is another piece of wood. Ideally, you have a stump or a section of log at a decent height, and you put your wood on that and you cut through that. That's what I always grew up cutting on.
Yep.
When I'm in the woods, I'll look for a board or another flat piece of wood. If I can split one, I'll sometimes sink that into the ground a little bit so it's steady, and I'll put my wood on top of that split flat piece if I can. Or if you can get a couple of good splits, sometimes you can get like a nice board-shaped one. But ideally, nothing beats a good stump. Like, honestly,
a good stump is the best splitting block you'd ever have. Solid, won't move, nice feedback. And if anybody hasn't split wood, you'll know what all that means after you split wood 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. So when you swing down, if it's soft ground you hit, it's going to sink in. You're probably not going to split. And then what's going to happen is you're going to curse, you're going to damage your blade, and the chances of it coming back and hurting you go up exponentially. So when you swing an axe, what you're swinging against, not what you're planning on hitting, but what it's going to stop it afterwards, should be in the path before that axe, stopping the axe. So when you swing at that board, that log, if when it comes through, it's going to come through between your legs, It's not going to hit that surface. It's at the wrong height and it's the wrong thing. It's going to hurt you. We've talked before about, in some cases, it's worth like a short axe. Get on your knees and split on your knees, and that's so that when you finish your swing, it's going to land in the ground and not in your foot. And that happens. It does.
Yeah. No, it's very common.
But
Nope, go
I was
ahead.
so I mentioned glass, rock, and I have seen some metal ones.
I was going to say ceramic. I've seen ceramic ones too.
Ceramic. All these are common cutting surfaces. They're actually technically harder than your knife. And so every time your knife hits that, you're damaging the edge. You're shortening the lifespan of that edge, and that means you're going to have to resharpen that knife.
Well, think
So-
about it. You can use ceramic and glass to hone an edge. If you ever are in desperate need of a strop or something like that, just put a quick edge on your knife, like you just need to clean some of the burrs off, put the window down in your truck or car and that top rough edge, if you gently go across it, it makes a nice polishing rod, much like a ceramic rod will. Ceramic's better. Glass will do in a pinch.
Bottom of a ceramic mug, we'll put a beautiful edge on a knife. If you know how to do it. And it's smooth. Sometimes they have some imperfections that will mess them up. But yeah, if you're cutting in something harder than your knife, you will dull it, you will shorten its lifespan, you will regret it. So people use these though because they're cleaner. And what that they mean by that is bacteria. It's easier to clean it off and then keep it food safe. The problem is it's really bad for your knives. So I recommend not using that. The next option that people like is plastic. Well, now you have microplastics. So that's not a good method either. So wood, I'm a very big fan of wood. Wood will generally not do much damage to your knife. It'll take a lot of cutting against wood to really dull your knife, especially for cutting meats and stuff. But you can't, it is porous, so you do need to clean it. There's a few ways. Basically, one of them is putting it in boiling water and then putting a coating of a good food safe oil on top of that.
I was going to say, they actually make what's called cutting board
oil?
sealant.
Yeah.
And it is great. It's kind of like half oil, half wax. They recommend you heat up the board, you put a coat on it, you let it soak in, you rub it off, and it seals it really nice. I was kind of skeptical of it myself. I prefer some natural stuff, but I tried some. Works good. Not going to lie.
Honestly, a little bit of olive oil and some beeswax.
I was just about to say, beeswax is usually what I use.
But that is my recommendation. You want something soft to protect your knife with. I sold knives, or I tried to sell knives for a period of time, and that's one of the things they taught us. The knives I was going to sell was Cutco, and they actually designed it so that the blade couldn't touch the cutting surface. So they call it the patented double D edge, and that's the maintenance piece that I want you to be aware of. Be very aware of what your knife is going against, and if you're starting to hit things like bone, ceramic, glass, metal, rock, stone, anything like that, that's going to quickly take that edge off, and that's going to mean you have to spend a lot of time sharpening, and that's going to shorten the overall lifespan of your knife. Treat your knife like your life depends on it, because it might someday, and if you've been treating it poorly, it may not cut what you need to properly, and it may, like you said, a dull knife or improperly maintained knife is much more likely to injure you.
No, 100%. So, we have talked about maintain the edge. Keep a little oil on it. And I guess the only caveat I'm going to make on oil is not all oils are created equally. I like a lot of natural oils, but keep in mind, any natural oil can generally go rancid. There are a few exceptions. Do a little research. It usually takes a fair amount of time for this as well. You know what I mean? So if you're going to put oil on your knife, put it back in its case and throw it in a drawer and leave it for like 7 years, which some of my knives have been in here with. I generally don't use, for me, I'm going to straight up admit, I use a little bit of olive oil or I'll use coconut oil. Both of which are good food safe. The coconut oil I like because it comes out as a paste. It warms up in your fingers and you can rub it into both the handle and the blade really well. But it does go rancid faster than olive oil would. Olive oil, it's pretty stable. It'll stay for a long time before it goes rancid, but it does have the potential to go rancid. Also on this stuff, where this is organic, keep in mind this little thing called spontaneous combustion. If you take an organic oil, put it in a cloth or something like that, ball it up and throw it in an area that doesn't have a lot of air, these things can potentially spontaneously combust. Now, it doesn't usually happen. It's very uncommon, folks. I'm not going to lie to you. It's super uncommon. but I got to put that disclaimer in there. You know what I mean? The firefighter in me is saying that has to happen. So yeah, a little bit of oil goes a long way. And as Ben said, not just the blade. You want to keep the water off that too, but the handle. Sealing it and keeping a good seal and polish on that is going to stop it from wearing. And it's going to stop a lot of crap from soaking into the handle. So, I mean, what's a lot of crap? Like muddy waters and stuff like that on a raw handle. I have a handle here that's not really finished that well. It's fairly raw because it was a knife kit. This should be sealed a little better. If I was to take this and throw it in some mud, and I'm not saying throw your knife into mud, but, you know, my knife falls in the mud, that could stain that handle. And it's gonna look bad for one. And two, it's always going to have that little bit of dirt in it, and it might dig into my hand or whatever, you know what I mean? So a nice polish. So if you do get some... like on this one, I'm probably going to sand it a little bit. So if you start getting some rough sections, it's worth going over it with a very fine sandpaper, bringing that down to something that's nice and smooth, clean it, and then seal it back up with a good oil. Now, it doesn't have to be the same oil you used on your knife. You can. It'll work fine. Or you can get something like tung oil. You can buy it on Amazon. It's fairly cheap. It's stable. It doesn't go rancid, I don't think, or at least that's what it was sold to me as. And it's food safe. You can use it on spoons and stuff like that too if you're into carving spoons and whatnot. And that's why I actually ended up picking some up, because I wanted something that I could use on spoons. And I heard something fall and I have no idea what it is. But anyway, the reason I wanted to use it on spoons is nut allergies. A lot of other organic oils will have potential triggers to nut allergies. Like I was using walnut oil because it was nice and mild. I liked the smell, but there's people that have nut allergies. So I started using tung oil.
Have you tried paste finishing wax?
Nope.
I bought this stuff years ago to do a tabletop. It lasts virtually forever. It's dirt cheap, like $20 for a can.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it.
It works really good. It's a great finishing thing to put on, and it's a bit denser than an oil, so it sort of sticks around a little bit longer. And in fact, any type of wax is another thing. If you talk about long term, and I really want to hit that quickly, you can cover, if you're going to put this away and you don't know when you're going to get back to it, just rubbing a candle, or beeswax is even better. But
beeswax is usually what all mine are set in right now.
Right. That'll last virtually forever and it'll be fine. Especially if you have, like you said, natural materials, bone, leather, and wood. A little bit of beeswax will
absolutely. And when we say a little bit of beeswax, folks, we mean a little bit. If there's clumps on your stuff, too much. Like a super thin microscopic coating. You're just trying to seal it, not bury it for an excavation later. That's the other thing I see a lot of times is people hand me a knife and the oil is soaking off it. Oh yeah, I took great care of this. That is so much oil. You don't need that much oil. Well, what's it going to hurt? It's not really going to hurt the metal, but if it's sitting inside a case, you now have this case full of oil. And depending on what that oil is, more often than not, it's WD-40 or cotton oil or whatever's laying around the shop. Guarantee it's going to break down the leather. As where natural ones tend to be way more gentle on stuff like that.
For sure, 100%. So, it's something to think about. The other thing, I guess, is if you do get a bit of corrosion, we mentioned removing it. Steel wool, light sandpaper. You don't need a heavy grit. A fine grit usually will do a pretty good job. Vinegar is a really good method.
If you're going to use vinegar, neutralize it when you're done. Vinegar is an acid. It will continue to deteriorate the metal unless you neutralize it. Wash it off, basically.
And with that, just a little bit of baking soda and then just fresh, clean water. And then apply your waxes or oils. And like you said, a little bit. Take a cloth, lightly damp it with the oil, and then just wipe the whole thing down. We'll generally do it. With the wax, same thing. Take a cloth, put a bit on the end, and just rub it in. And then sort of wipe it off. And what remains will be enough. You can't wipe it all off. Don't worry. Unless you're using detergents and some serious elbow grease, it's going to stick. Enough will stick. And that'll keep your knife. It's not hard. It's not complex.
So I guess a couple don'ts was the only thing I wanted to throw into the end of this. I know we're on 40 minutes, but we derailed there for at least 10 minutes or more. Some don'ts. And these are some things, and I know you were trying to finish up, Ben, and I wanted to cut you off before you got that far. Some don'ts to do with knives specifically. I do not like sharpening a knife with a file. There's a couple things why I don't like doing it. I'm going to recommend against it. One, they are very aggressive. It is very easy to screw up a knife. Not only edge, but its whole angle and profile real quick with an aggressive file. So I'll see people like take their chainsaw files out, the flat files, and just start going at their knife, and I'm like, do you know how hard you're pushing and what kind of angle you want on there? Oh, I'm just trying to get an edge on it. And all of a sudden the edge is like cocked to one side and it cuts always to the left anytime you try to do something, much like their chainsaws did. But anyway, I recommend against a file. It can be done. I'm not going to tell you it can't be done. It's just real aggressive and real hard. The files are carbon. Once again, they're like carbon hardened. So if you're going to go with a file, just get one of these. It'll give you the correct angle in it. I think it sits around 25-degree angle, which is a pretty broad angle, but it'll cut and it'll be fairly solid, and it's even on both sides with very little risk. This was $3 at Princess Auto. I bought it because it's literally so small to put in my backpack. It takes up like no room.
I don't know if you ever see my file setup.
Don't think so.
So when I was making knives, and I did for a short period make knives, and I would love to get back to it, but you need equipment, and I would get in way too much trouble trying to do it in a condo. It was a 6-foot long jig, and I had a very solid steel bar running through it with a single pivot point in the back, and it was raised, I don't know, about 8 inches high. And what I did is I strapped the file to it, and then I would. It's the same way you sharpen, so it was like a giant landscape, is what it was like. And I would do metal removal, and I did it with saw blades. I used to take saw blades and turn into knives, and I tried a leaf spring one time. That was a solid knife, buddy. But that's how you do it. If you're gonna use a file, like if you have a huge nick, or if you've really lost the edge, I mean. You're talking like the edge is gone. There's no way you're going to get down with a sharpening kit. That's when I would use a file again. And honestly, you have to be very, very careful and very controlled with it. Even with axes, I found the same thing with axes. Axes tend to get huge nicks. A file can be used to get that out. You really need to control it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a very odd-shaped edge. And what you'll find is it'll never do what you expect it to do again. Because if you don't want an S-shaped edge, you want a consistent curve all the way around, right? And so if you've changed the geometry of the edge, you're going to have some problems. So, yeah.
Another don't use anything that generates heat. So grinders, if your knife is bent, I'll just heat it up and turn it and get it back in. First of all, if it was bent, it was a bad temper to begin with. Hate to break it to you, either a low-quality knife or bad batch. You know what I mean? They shouldn't bend. They should spring back to shape. They should not stay bent if it's tempered correctly. Now, I have knives that I can guarantee you I could bend. You know what I mean? They're just bad quality knives, but they serve a purpose for me. So don't use heat. If you use heat, you're going to ruin that temper. These things are tempered very specifically, or at least a good knife is generally tempered very specifically. Before they put the handle on, this knife would have sat in an oven or a kiln or something like that, and it went through several heat cycles. And it's that heat cycles that give it the strength and the flexibility to be a good knife. You get in there with a torch or a grinder, and you start messing with that temper, chances are it will never act the way it used to again. If you use a torch, you got a weak spot. Wherever you heated it up, unless you quench it properly, it's going to be soft and it's going to bend and it'll never hold an edge there. And if you use a grinder, you probably just ruin the whole face of the knife, or not the whole face, the whole edge of the knife, because now it's been detempered. So until you get back past where you heated it up, that knife is basically shot. So avoid heat and any kind of use around a knife.
Yeah. And when you see somebody using a grinder, like that knows what they're doing, you'll see they have like a bucket of water. And they'll like do a pass in the water, never allow heat to build up. To put a temper back into a thing, you're going to have to heat it to a certain temperature. You need to cool it at a certain rate. And sometimes that's fast and slow, depending on the metal. And then usually when they temper it, they put it in an oven at a certain temperature for a certain period of time, and then slowly cool it down to gain that proper um, retain, edge retaining hardness. Now, people will talk about a hard knife and a soft knife. Do you want to explain that, or
That might be a topic for another day.
okay?
Just because we're on 45 minutes, and I know we could talk another 15 on that easy, unless we want to commit to an hour episode.
No, I think we can. I just do know that some knives are going to be really hard, some are going to be really soft. Soft ones are easier to sharpen, hard ones will hold their edge longer. There is a preference by most people, not always the same. Some people like a soft knife they can put an edge on, they can control that edge a lot better. Some people like a hard edge because they don't have to sharpen as often. But when it does need to be sharpened, it is harder to do. So that's the quick and dirtiest example.
I forgot about the Speedy Sharp. I had that here too for a sharpening thing. It works, but once again, you got to know your angles. But hard and soft. The quick and dirty off it is basically what Ben said. The only thing I'd add into that is if a hard knife chips, man, it chips.
A hard knife is much more likely to shatter, especially when dropped or impacted. A soft one will absorb that much better. So there is that too. And if you watch like a knife show or they've just hardened one, they'll break like glass.
Right? They actually have to be careful when they quench them because they can break them. That's how hard they get. They change the crystalline structure of the metal. Chemistry class. And anyway, that sudden change, like when you see them quench it, you notice they don't slosh it around, or most of them don't. It's depending on the length, that's sloshing of them. One can twist and distort the metal, or two, it can actually send a crack straight through it. Anyway, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of science behind the tempering and hardening and stuff like that. Super interesting topic. If you guys want to hear about it, we'd love to talk about it again. I can guarantee you that. We could drag somebody like Jamie or Peter on here that could probably talk circles around us.
Oh, they go all day long.
Absolutely. And both those folks, they are metal smiths. They're knife smiths. Jamie Bluefin, is that his company? Jamie Harris, I think it's Bluefin. He made this case. All it says is Jay Harris on the back. I think he since started the company Bluefin. We've had him on the show in the past. Jump back and look. I'm sure I linked him up there.
I had a rumor I'm getting something that he made, not from him, but I heard
he makes good stuff. He's gotten real good in the last year. Well, he was always good. I'm not throwing shade, Jamie. I'm not throwing shade, bud. But I have noticed a massive difference in your work in about the last year and a half. You really cracked down, started doing it as like less of a hobby, more of a job, and your dedication's showing. Let me put that.
I think I accidentally found his house, eh?
Oh, yeah?
I'll leave that at that, but
fair enough. Anyway, we're at 50 minutes, man. We better end this up. So you want to sign us off? What's your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, it is as simple as this. You know, a good knife is a valuable tool. You know, we always keep one on us. Take time, keep it clean, take care of it. Make sure you maintain all components of it. And you know, if in doubt, look up the manufacturer's recommendations. We didn't really say that, but yeah, and take care of that. It is a tool. It's a tool that I use daily. I know Robert uses his daily, and we would not be caught without one. If there's any way that we can carry a knife, we are carrying one.
The only time I didn't carry a knife and it bugged me every day was with my old job. And you knew what that was and why I couldn't carry one, and I hated it. I love being a driver examiner. I can carry a knife again.
That's like when I fly. I hate it. Like, what? I can't carry a knife?
Never had to fly yet.
No.
Helicopter, but they encouraged us to bring sharp stuff.
I flew to Newfoundland, and when I got there, I went to my brother and I said, "You have to loan me a knife because I can't be here a week without."
And the random stuff we do with the knives that are on our desk, I made a canoe paddle out of a popsicle stick.
So yeah, get out there, have fun, enjoy it. Let us know what your favorite knife is, or just let me know. Show us your knives. Feel free to send us pictures, pics. You know, knife porn is a real thing, and we love it. And yeah.
Night, everybody. We'll see you next week. We have another exciting topic for you. See you then. Night, all.